of all the places in Shady Side, why are you trying to put a cell phone tower in my kid's playground? There's like 1,000 other places you can put a cell phone tower.
This is ground zero for the best possible opportunity to create. I understand, but the point I'm making is this. You're asking why I can't go somewhere else, right? You're asking why can't I go like a mile away or 2 miles away? The answer is this is the best place to fill the hole in the network.
Really? There's really everywhere else in Shady Side. You're trying to tell me everywhere else in Shady Side you can't get more than 200 feet from a building or somebody's property line or whatever. That's what you're trying to tell me?
What I'm saying.
And will you be guaranteed? Will we be guaranteed that the school is the cell tower is safe for us kids, and we won't get some sort of cancer or anything like that? Because I don't want cancer.
Can I ask what grade you're in?
What?
What grade are you in?
5th.
You're in 5th grade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Going into 5th.
When my son was 9 years old, in the 3rd grade, he was diagnosed with leukemia. He went to a school where there was a cell tower within 300 or 400 feet from his elementary school at Forestville Elementary School in Fairfax County. So if there's anyone who can understand your concern, it's me. Because I'm a parent of a child who had cancer and survived cancer. And I can tell you that there is no credible evidence to demonstrate that my son got cancer from that cell tower. Because the reality is that there's no evidence to show it causes harm. And I wouldn't have been big before it causes harm. That in every single lease that we sign with Anne Arundel County Schools, we have a provision in our lease agreement so that if there's ever a risk, or it's conclusively proved that wireless energy causes harm, we take action. And we have the same responsibility with our carriers. We take action for that. So that's the number one thing I want you to understand.
Can I say something to that?
Yeah.
Respectful? That says that if it's proven that it causes cancer, which it likely will in
Causes
time,
harm.
causes harm, that then you would take the tower down or make it be below whatever the new number is. This does not address the risk from all the years of exposure. Are you addressing that? Because wait, I want to say one other thing.
Right.
As far as I understand, insurance companies don't insure for low-level electromagnetic fields. They group it as a pollutant. You have to buy special insurance if you want coverage for low-level radio frequency radiation. Do you have that insurance?
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned electromagnetic radiation because it's really de minimis. And as you may know, that to power a tower, it's the same electrical service as a single-family home. So the amount of electrical energy that's required to power our tower is very, very low. Each of the antenna panels, 30 watts, maybe 50 watts. So it's very, very low energy from each of our antenna installations. But I think with request to your question, which is the issue associated with harm, we have provisions in our agreement that if it's demonstrated by the government that it causes harm, we have to respond. And that's in every single agreement we've ever signed with the municipality. That if it's proven by the government that it causes harm, we have to act. And so that's the fail-safe with respect to this issue that you're concerned about.
Thank you.
Can we get the answer environment? Because more people now connect to the internet through their wireless device than to computers sitting at their desktops. And people want their phones to work. And in fact, when you look at order of priority, it's ranked, having good wireless connectivity in your community is considered one of the top 4 things people look for when they're looking at becoming part of a community.
How much money is Verizon going to make off of this?
Money or the kid?
So the question you're asking is how much money do we make from building a cell tower on the site?
Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, I'm a business person. This is my livelihood. This is how I support my family. This is how Matt supports his family. All the people that work in our team. This is how the wireless industry provides the resources. We believe that infrastructure for wireless makes life better for people.
We're looking for any way we can earn money to benefit the school. And this happens to be an avenue. The Board of Education has approved it, and we are basically implementing what they execute. They don't vote on it. It's a review item. They voted for the master lease agreement. It's a review item, It's heard.
And Montgomery County and Prince George's County have put the restriction in for elementary school. So why is Anne Arundel County, again, this was already brought up, but why? Elementary school
It's a great location because we can minimize the visual impact because we placed it in the center of a forested area away from the fall zone of the tower and has very little visual impact. There's benefits to the school, and why shouldn't there be benefits to the school? Why shouldn't the schools have the opportunity to be able to drive benefit like the other 5 towers? And the safety of our children is the most, nothing comes second, nothing comes above that. And so the safety of our children, and so the answer to the question is there are studies done, there have been studies done over 30 or more years. And all these studies have been evaluated by the scientific community, and there is no credible evidence from the organizations who I put my faith in, like the American Cancer Society, the National Cancer Institute, the FDA, the FCC. There is no credible evidence that shows that that this causes harm. And so the World Health Organization, made a statement that radio energy is a possible type 2 carcinogen, like coffee and sunlight. So the reality is, possible type 2 carcinogen, I don't know what that means, but all I can say is that there's no credible evidence that proves that this causes harm.
Equipment, you could have put a picture of a cell phone tower and showed us exactly what it would look like to it and sold to people that shit. And it's not going to work out. The 25 grand you spend a year in there, 10 years, you could have bought a piece of property and put it out of the way and got it out of our way. If cell phones aren't bad and if the signal's not bad on it, why can't you use a cell phone at the gas pump when you're pumping gas? Okay, you're going to come up with the RF stuff and sell these people this stuff, but it's not proven. Every one of the Highline towers, people's property values, devalues, and ours are going to value, and they're right across from this. You say inside the building, the school kids aren't a problem. What about outside in the playground? That's about all I got, because I can't talk.
Radio frequency energy from our cell towers is the same as the radio frequency energy from our phones. It's the same as the radio frequency energy from our Wi-Fi routers, cordless phones, and baby monitors. It's all the same form of radio energy. And the amount of radio energy generated from our facilities is de minimis. In fact, it's so small that it takes very expensive equipment just to measure it accurately. What people have constructive ideas on moving the tower to another location on the site or off the site, but the bottom line is this. Verizon, we listen to Verizon. They have very specific criteria as to where they want service to be provided. This is the location Verizon has told us is optimal for their network, and that's, I wish I could answer. I apologize that I can't go more into more detail. But that's really all I've got. That's all I've got.
You said it's optimal from a technological incentive.
So these guys are making a capital investment. They have to get a return on their investment because they're spending a lot of resources, making a long-term commitment, and so it's really in their ballpark to determine what happens next.
All right. But I'm a scientist. I'm a biologist. Is the school board going to be considering, in doing the process of consideration, are they going to be consulting with pediatricians, doctors, and members of the health community instead of just the engineers that are going to tell you this is what the best situation is?
We've looked over all the credible studies, and the board has looked over those studies. And basically all the information we have read, we feel there are not any concerns.
No
One of
concern?
the things with the RF energy is it's like 1,000 times less.
No concerns?
And the other thing, let's take Broadneck High School, for example. It's our oldest tower, again, three years old. They went out there and did a study. It's located behind the stadium. And they actually went out and did measurements. As they went across the field, again, it was way below the FCC requirements. But as they got actually inside, all the way across the other side of the school, inside by the science lab, the RF energy was higher. And it was because of the Wi-Fi routers in the school. They were picking up the RF energy inside the school was higher inside than it was outside, right next to the tower. And I'm just telling you, that was the findings that they found. And again, I look.
Shame on the school board for voting to approve it before the public meeting. Shame on the school board for voting for a 5-year renewal contract before any renegotiation or public input. Shame on the school board for that. Shame for not renegotiating to hold so that Milestone is not held harmless. Shame on them. Shame on Mike Miller for taking Milestone money. Shame on Mike Bush for taking Milestone money. Democracy works when we have input to the people that we elected.
I completely understand Milestone's position. It's a good business plan. From the Verizon perspective, I pay a lot of money to Verizon, as a lot of people in here do. I definitely don't want worse cell phone coverage. I definitely don't want, lapse in the ability. I just don't think necessarily that it has to be mutually beneficial. I also would like to pay less for gas, but I don't necessarily want that on the kids' playground. And I don't know. I'm not a wireless expert. I'm not a communications industry expert. But there's clearly enough doubt that we all take our time. And with our kids, the one thing I'm not really willing to do is take risks, right? And you mentioned, sir, that coffee and exposure to sunlight is the same level of carcinogen potentially as what the documentation is now. I don't give my kids coffee, and I put a lot of sunscreen on them. And I'm not trying to be funny. I take, as we all do, the fact that any risk, it's a dangerous world, right? And we're just trying to prevent any risk we could, because who knows what's coming at us. From the question perspective, I have is maybe more for the school board, and I don't have the particular piece of legislation or the actual part of it, but there seems to be kind of a rumor or some information going around that the liability has been accrued by the school or the county, and that Milestone Communication is held harmless or has released some of that to the county, which is a taxpayer certainly a concern. So maybe you can speak to that. And then secondly, back to Grant, who I believe may have left on the issue of checks and background checks. Obviously, I'm assuming there could be 24-hour access to these sites that are needed for maintenance.
There's 24-hour access only in the case of an emergency, like when the power goes down, but that's the purpose of having a generator, because the only reason that they need to be on site.
I understand that.
Generators there, they don't need to rush out to turn.
What about third-party vendors? Are those included in any background checks?
Again, with respect to the 24-hour, 24/7 access to the site, they have access to the site only in the event of an emergency, and then they have to follow up with the schools as to who was there, when they were there, and so forth. They have to go back and report when they were there as part of our lease agreement.
Okay, but so third-party vendors that come at 2 o'clock in the afternoon don't access it through the main door of the school, that come around to the Idlewild side, the proposed access side. Are they obligated to?
Yeah, they are. We have signs in Spanish and English right at the gate before they can open the gate. There's a sign there that has a list of all the rules and regulations. And the first rule for the school sites is they have to turn their truck around and go over to the school administration building and sign in at the school administration building during office hours. And they're not permitted on the site in non-office hours unless it's an emergency such as a...
Okay, but they're not escorted. Once they sign in, the same as anybody, just a signature and their ID.
Well, they have to present their ID, and they have to go through the system, and the system checks, has evidence of who they are, what time they check in, and the school has...
I'm not too familiar with that system. Maybe you could speak to that, because I'm pretty familiar with some different criminal investigative systems. I've never heard of one where you scan your driver's license and you're instantly background check. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
I yield the rest.
I'm going to be really now reinforcing this 2.5 minutes because we have to get through our list. Please understand.
He was
After Jessica, we have Jennifer Dwyer.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to commend all the public that came out tonight. It's truly impressive, and it's very shameful on the school system, but it's very intentional that this Shady side plus the master lease agreement was on the agenda in front of the Board of Education for June. Other than putting it on the agenda, what notification did the Board of Education give to residents of Shady side that it was going to be on the Board of Education's agenda on June, or that the master lease agreement, which was signed in June of 2012, was going to be up to be signed again? What notification, other than just publicizing it and I guess a press release? What other notification did you give these people?
That's why we are here tonight. This is the public.
Okay, but it is also
process. The process is we have to notify the Board of Education.
This is on for
That-
like 2.5 minutes.
Actually, it is.
So
I mean, we really have to get things
The
done.
Board of Education has to know about it, so when the public is sending them emails, they have to know about it. The first step before getting it out to the public is we're notifying the Board of Ed, the rest of the Board of Ed, because again, one of the board members, Ms. Sasso, did come down to the meeting with the principal and the PTA to talk about it. And after that, we then put it out to the board. And the next step is to bring it out to the public, and that is why we are here tonight. So
Thank
we
you very
sent
much.
out
Thank you very much,
emails.
Mr.
They
Stewart.
notified.
Thank you for the answer.
Thank you
Yes,
for the
ma'am.
answer, but it is just shocking that it's not shocking. It is totally telltale that you're doing this in the summer. That the kids didn't get to go home with their backpacks and the new PTA letter in September notifying them of this. And people could do their research, or the parents could know. Because honestly, this is really disgraceful. Okay, second thing. Your master lease agreement you signed in June of 2012, there was only one other competitor, a Florida company. I used to do site acquisition. I know very well this industry. I know all about it. You have a master lease agreement. Carriers are going to go to whoever has the agreement. You're not, as a site act, I am not going to go to all the property owners around because they're going to do their homework and realize they can charge you a heck of a lot more. That's number 2, 3, whatever. Your background checks. What are you talking about? You give a driver's license. When I want to be a chaperone, I have to fill out paperwork. I have to watch a sex education video. No one is giving their driver's license, and then you've got to check right away. Ding, 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 you're a sex offender. We would be a lot better off otherwise, because everywhere I'd go, I'd be like, check, 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 check. Okay, anyhow. I'm just shocked. I'm going to just say Len and company, and I want to commend you all, because Len and company don't normally come to these meetings. They are scared of this community. You had this meeting set for July. Oh, you got notice that they're not going to take this. So you rescheduled it to now. Shocking. Not really. Okay. I would like... No. Listen to me. I used to work in this industry. I have friends that are still radio frequency engineers. Can the radio frequency engineer guarantee that no harm will come from this? Because there are no studies that conclusively say that it is totally harmless. Okay? Anytime you went and did zoning hearings, I'm an attorney. Every time we did it, no RF engineer can guarantee it. My RF engineer friend, who is paid by X, Y, and Z, can't come as an expert. You're paid by Verizon. Do you know what he said to me? I said, Jess, we put it at my school, at elementary school. They wanted to put 150 feet from the kindergarten playground. Okay? Disgraceful. You know what he said to me? I said, honestly, if you were going to have one at your house, how far away would you be comfortable with it? Because he was like, Jess, blah, blah, blah. He said 800 feet. No closer to his house than 800 feet. And you want to put this 350 feet from the classroom? That is disgusting. Thank you very much, everybody.
It's hard to talk that fast, but she did. Okay, the next person is Jennifer Dwyer.
Jen, just send us up for a minute.
Can we have Jennifer Dwyer up, please?
She'll be right here. Natalie wants to talk to you.
I just wanted to ask, seeing as I'm a member of the Shady Elementary School kids, what happens if we have to go on a fire drill? And will we be guaranteed that the cell tower is safe for us kids, and we won't get some sort of cancer or anything like that? Because I don't want cancer.
That's a great
Can I ask what grade you're in? What grade are you in?
5th.
You're in 5th grade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Going into 5th.
When my son was 9 years old, in the 3rd grade, he was diagnosed with leukemia. He went to a school where there was a cell tower within 300 or 400 feet from his elementary school at Forestville Elementary School in Fairfax County. So if there's anyone that can understand your concern, it's me. Because I'm a parent of a child who had cancer and survived cancer. And I can tell you that there is no credible evidence to demonstrate that my son got cancer from that cell tower. because the reality is that there's no evidence to show it causes harm. And I wouldn't be in business that would cause harm.
Segue real quick.
What's your name, ma'am?
Oh, I'm Randy Williams. This will be really fast. I was amongst the very first residents to go to Shadyside Elementary School in 1971. At that time, we had to limit our space for playgrounds because when it rains, we flood. We don't have any room at the school to play. This is going to make it much worse. When you take those trees out, I live on Idlewild Road. I walk it every day. We flood whenever it rains, and it lasts for weeks. So there is no way that it's not going to impact that school playground, and there's going to be less room for the children to play on no matter where you put that in the trees when you destroy the trees. And please make sure you all sign up at our little sign-up sheet so you can get information for the future. Thank you.
Now let's get it quiet here. Are you Jennifer?
Yeah, that's me.
For me to lower it?
Oh, yeah. That's good.
Tell it.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. So, I know you talked a lot today. We talked a lot about money and the finances and all this, and you're saying your number one concern is the safety of the students and whatever. But, like, let's not get it twisted. Y'all are making a lot of money to be here right now. How much y'all getting paid now? I know you don't even get paid hourly, excuse me. But, like, how much is it costing your company right now? How much money are you all trying to, like, make off this deal? They wouldn't be invested in having all you guys here if they weren't trying to make a whole bunch of money off of this. So, how much money is Verizon going to make off of this?
Money or the kid?
So the question you're asking is how much money do we make from building a cell tower on the site?
Yeah.
Well, you know, look, I mean, I'm a business person. This is my livelihood. This is how I support my family. This is how Matt supports his family, all the people that work in our team. This is how the wireless industry provides the resources. We believe that infrastructure for wireless makes life better for people. We firmly believe that.
Our kids get cancer and God knows whatever
What
else.
we're saying is that when there's better wireless connectivity, our devices work, our first responders have access to the internet, our people that need to call our first responders can communicate. When the power goes out and there's no electricity, our data, we can get to the internet, we can get vital information because our phones are working, and they're working because we have facilities that allow it to function. We believe that our communities are more valuable. We believe our communities are safer when our phones work. People pay for their phone bill, whether their service is good or bad. Verizon wants to make an investment to make that better here. They want to make an investment here, and other carriers will do the same. But it can't happen. I wish we could make all this happen without cell towers, because then there wouldn't be any visual impact. But it's needed, and that's how the business works.
This isn't about visual impact. So, and thank you for reminding me, build it somewhere else. That's actually my number one question is, of all the places in Shadyside, why are you trying to put a cell phone tower in my kid's playground? There's like 1,000 other places you can put a cell phone tower. Move it 500 feet that way or 1,000 feet that way, whatever. Don't put it in a playground. Why are you all going to pick a playground and put a cell phone tower?
I'm so glad you asked that question. It's a very good question. And playgrounds,
you know, let's face it. I mean, you know, where we place the tower, its proximity to the use of the school. We got to make sure that we don't interfere with the use of the school, and that's why we believe this site is a very good location for a cell tower, because it's 350 feet away from any school building, any playground. It's in a forested area with dense vegetation. It will have the least amount of visual impact in almost any place it can be built in the peninsula. We have a 200-foot setback requirement. 200-foot setback requirement is what the county requires. There are very, very few places in Shadyside that can meet that criteria. This happens to be one of them, and it also happens to align with the location where Verizon knows. Based on the map, this you saw the other two towers. This is ground zero for the best possible opportunity to create. I understand, but the point I'm making is this. You're asking why it can't go somewhere else, right? You're asking why can't it go like a mile away or 2 miles away? The answer is this is the best place to fill the hole in the network.
Really? There's really everywhere else in Shadyside. You're trying to tell me everywhere else in Shadyside you can't get more than 200 feet from a building or somebody's property line or whatever. That's what you're trying to tell me?
What I'm saying is
I feel like there's a lot of trees.
I wish I was smart enough to know where Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile or Sprint want to go next. I wish I was that smart, but I'm not. Because their networks, like I said, are dynamic and they're shifting and changing all the time. When I first started my business in 2000, we would get a search area, a ring area, it would be a mile wide. Now, they're an eighth of a mile wide.
Because the coverage objective for the high-speed data is very, very precise. I'm not making up the location. The location is decided by... I'm
You
sorry,
said it's for
I'm sorry,
911, not for data.
So, yeah.
911 is
Last
not
point
data.
to the school board, talking all about the deal that they're making and money and whatever. That is not your number one concern either. Your number one concern is doing right by our kids. And shame on all you guys for taking money from these people. They aren't even from here and don't give a shit what happens to our kids.
Okay, Nate. Are you Nate?
Nate was my husband, he took my spot.
What is your last name?
Jean Lessica.
Jean Lessica. Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
You spoke earlier?
No, my husband took my spot. Thank you. I reiterate my husband's, I don't really care to talk to you. You have a great business plan, but it's to the school. I know it's money, but specifically, what programs were on the budget to be cut that you decided to think that going to put cell towers on school would be beneficial? I just believe that schools should be in the business of education and not in making money. So do you have a list of...
No. It basically
So why-
it supplements the operating budget, which can be used for anything in the school system, whether it's to buy equipment. And the school board decided, because of the county is cash strapped, we're looking for any way we can earn money to benefit the school. And this happens to be an avenue. The Board of Education has approved it, and we are basically implementing what they execute. They don't vote on it. It's a review item. They voted for the master lease agreement. It's a review item. It's heard.
And Montgomery County and Prince George's County have put the restriction in for elementary school. So why is Anne Arundel County, again, this was already brought up, but why elementary school and Shady side?
Good question.
Currently, all of our schools are marketed by them. We look at it to see if it's feasible. If it works, it basically proceeds forward. If it doesn't work, then it won't move
But you
forward.
can't provide a list of specifically where it goes. I know you said a third goes here, a third goes here, a third
Yeah,
goes here,
well,
but that's
actually,
just like
let me correct
numbers.
that. That was my mistake. It's actually 25, 25, and 50. But again, it was just... Well, nothing goes to the elected officials from the school system. Okay? It comes in. We just changed the regulation just recently that allowed the revenue sharing of 25, 25, and 50. And before then, it all went to the system. There hasn't been a lot of money coming in. They're only at 5
So why do you
hours.
believe it is a good benefit?
Because
From you.
it's additional revenue that is coming into the school system to supplement what the county gives us and the state gives us. Because in the past 2
So
years,
25%
the budget,
of 20,000 just doesn't seem like our students should be an experiment for
Well,
that kind of money.
and the rest of it is the 40% of the monthly.
Yeah, Box Tops makes much more money than that, honestly. And I just encourage you guys, August 23rd is the next school board meeting, and again, they're coming up to the elected officials, so vote. And you get to talk there, too. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Jessica.
We had to pay for our entire playground that's in there. We raised the money ourselves. School board didn't
All right,
give it to
folks, we have about 4 speakers left. So if it's all right, I'd like to give them all of them, and let's make sure, and I'm going to halt the sign.
Said you have.
How many sites have been rejected?
Yeah, would you say you have about 20 now?
Well, we built over 100
Okay.
over the course
Well,
of 15,
all right, so in the
16
grand
years.
scheme of things, how many times have you been rejected?
Less than 5%.
Okay, thank you.
Our high school rejected them.
Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Derek. Is it Derek Harris? Harkins, thank you.
So I'm about a 15-year resident of Shady side, actually, live just down the road in Snug Harbor. And I sent my daughter to the elementary school. And I just have a couple of questions that, trying to listen to everybody. You mentioned that this was probably one of the ideal locations, and it sounded like it's picture perfect. And considering it's such a hot button issue with the community, I'm just wondering, what's your second one on the list, and would it actually, help you meet some of the requirements that Verizon or other carriers have?
Yeah, so the question you asked was, what's second on the list if this site doesn't go forward?
Second, third, whatever. I'm just thinking, since this is so difficult location, there's needing a lot of resistance from the community. What other locations have you looked at, and what other locations are possible that might not get you the perfect location, but will give you something without putting it in a place that's going to cause such a reaction in the community?
Okay, well, thank you for your question. I appreciate you asking a question. And, well, first of all, I think we agree not to agree about the quality of the location. So we think it's a good location. We think it meets a lot of the objectives of low visual impact and great coverage. But it's really, like I said before, the RF engineers that work for Verizon are the ones that decide whether or not a site goes forward or doesn't go forward. Right now, this is the primary site. This is the location that they've selected for the tower. So I'm not the RF engineer responsible for the ring. In many instances, if you go to Mount Vernon in Fairfax County, there are a lot of places where there have been proposals and they just don't go forward. They just don't provide the service because there's a specific location that they target to meet their coverage objective, and they can either do it or they can't. What people have constructive ideas on moving the tower to another location on the site or off the site, but the bottom line is this. Verizon, we listen to Verizon. They have very specific criteria as to where they want service to be provided. This is the location Verizon has told us is optimal for their network, and that's, I wish I could answer. I apologize that I can't go more into more detail, but that's really all I've got. That's all I've got.
It's an optimal from a technological
Well, so these guys are making a capital investment. They have to get a return on their investment because they're spending a lot of resources, making a long-term commitment, and so it's really in their ballpark to determine what happens next.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And my second question, just a brief question to the school board. We've been hearing a lot about RF radiation and all those things. We have an expert here that's actually here that I guess was brought in here to try to give us some sort of better feelings about the technology. But I'm a scientist. I'm a biologist. Is the school board going to be considering, and during the process of consideration, are they going to be consulting with pediatricians, doctors, and members of the health community, instead of just the engineers that are going to tell you this is what's the best situation?
We've looked over all the credible studies, and the board has looked over those studies. And basically all the information we have read, we feel there are not any concerns.
No concerns?
One of the things with the RF energy is it's like 1,000 times less.
No concerns?
And the other thing, part of what we require is with any of these sites, they're required to do an annual RF study. It's not just outside, it's also inside. They have done it for every site, and they go out with an independent person that is going out there and taking readings to see what is the RF energy. We actually, just to give you an example, and again,
Let's finish.
So with the RF energy, what we found actually, let's take Broadneck High School for example. It's our oldest tower, again 3 years old. They went out there and did the study. It's located behind the stadium, and they actually went out and did measurements. As they went across the field, again it was way below the FCC requirements. But as they got actually inside, all the way across the other side of the school, inside by the science lab, the RF energy was higher. And it was because of the Wi-Fi routers in the school. They were picking up the RF energy inside the school was higher inside than it was outside, right next to the tower. And I'm just telling you, that was the findings that they found. And again, I look at these reports, we get them annually for each tower. If they are not in compliance, then they have to go back and remedy that situation. Right now the levels are so low, we have not seen any issues to date. And again, it's only been 4 years, but that's what we've been looking at.
I understand that you're going to take this information and you're getting that from a lot of the engineers, but I urge you to talk to people in the medical community about these things before you make any decisions.
I am from the medical community. I spent 25 years
And what is
running
your name?
cancers. I'm Diane Cuby, but I'm helping him with this. We spent 25 years running cancer centers. I was also part of the congressional delegation that was sent to represent the United States of America to Ukraine to ascertain the healthcare needs for the people of Ukraine on the 20th anniversary of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant accident. So don't tell me that there's nothing to be worried about. This is all cumulative. I've been involved, I've sat on pharmaceutical boards across this country. I have a major background in this. The studies that you're talking about, they aren't taking place and testing these things for 7 to 10 hours a day, which is the exposure of the children and the staff that are going to be sitting in that school. Okay, so forget your numbers. This takes 10 to 20 years to develop, and sadly, your son developed earlier. So we don't want it here, and we can bring as much scientific data and cover up the ones that you have. But I am coming to you as a professional and as someone who represented this country on these issues. So you're wrong. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Is it Mel?
I'm Maggie.
Maggie. So I have Maggie Rowe or
Rao.
but I also have someone named, is it Mel Gessel?
My name is Maggie Rao. And you were asking about an option to putting a cell tower someplace other than the elementary school. 15 years ago, I sat on the board of this building, and we have always wanted a cell tower. We have 4 acres that back on to 8 acres of county property, and I doubt that we are not any different than where the cell tower is proposed now, except we're not near children. There is an option. It means the school board doesn't get money, but it means our children are a little safer. And I would urge everybody to contact the Shady Side Community Center. You had to contact them to rent this building. You should contact them to see why we couldn't make a deal and have the tower here if being in Shady Side is so important. On a common sense note, it seems to me the Board of Education, the principal, and the PTA president of Shady Side dropped the ball. The woman who said it earlier was right. Send a note home with every child in their backpack to let them know when there are going to be meetings. You cannot rely on robocalls. You can't rely on people going on the Board of Education website, etc. That's just courtesy. Thank you.
The meeting, because it's so hard to learn it all in an hour. You guys do it, you guys work full time in this industry. We're all working hard at our jobs, raising our kids and family. And, for us to come out, even for me to be here tonight is difficult. I've got kids sick at home. I've got a newborn baby at home. And thank you. And, but I care enough to come out because I do know over years and years of being aware of the dangers. I know about NIH studies from last year that raise concerns. I know that we're not done with the studies. We don't know for sure, but the studies have just begun for us to put a tower on an elementary school until we know for sure. It just doesn't, it's just, everything in my common sense just says this is wrong.
Good job. I can stop your clock here. Do you want an answer or do you want a response?
I mean, fine, but I could probably give you a counter response.
Let's at least get it
Go
out.
back and forth.
You're welcome to do that, but let's at least hear something from it.
Sure, fine.
My name is Kevin McManus with EBI Consulting, and I understand that the concern with regard to health is very, very significant. And I think the best way for me to answer that question is to share some information with everybody about the basis for on that slide where we had showed that the American Cancer Society, the National Institutes of Health.
Can I?
Yes.
Have you seen recently they've updated their websites?
Yes.
They don't have your quote anymore. They have more research is needed, especially in the area of long-term exposure to children.
Yeah.
That's there on their website.
Yes, and what I would like to do is offer, because I have links to the specific fact sheets that were put out by NIH. There's 2 of them. There's also one from the American Cancer Society. There's also one that's very recent, 2016, done not in the U.S., but by the British Columbia Centers for Disease Control. For this very reason, the people were asking questions. What do we do? How do we answer these questions? And so they did a very exhaustive, what they call a meta-study, where they pull together data from a lot of studies. And this has been, you refer to the one that's ongoing now, that is building upon 30 years of work that's been going on. So what I would like to do is offer, and I don't think I have a copy for everybody, I got 45 or so of these. And I urge people to take a look, because these fact sheets are well written. They summarize very well the state of the science as it currently exists.
Okay, I know you. So it's in your best interest. I understand too.
John, you got your answer for that one. You have something else to mention?
Well, I have a question about the coverage area. Okay. Now I'm going to ask the question.
I've seen studies, mostly industry-funded studies, that say it might be safe, or it's probably safe, but I've seen a lot of other studies that say it's looking more and more like it's not. And I've even seen a guy presenting to the World Health Organization, saying something to the effect that it shouldn't be only a 2B carcinogen, but it should be bumped up as more dangerous to a 2A carcinogen. That concerns me when I have my little one coming. So that's my first question. So yeah, I'd like to see documentation.
Okay, so first of all, I want to thank you for asking that question, because you're talking about the safety of children. And everyone here in this room feels the same way, as I do, and everyone on our team. The safety of our children is the most, nothing comes second, nothing comes above that. And so the safety of our children, and so the answer to the question is there are studies done, there have been studies done over 30 or more years. And all these studies have been evaluated by the scientific community, and there is no credible evidence from the organizations who I put my faith in, like the American Cancer Society, the National Cancer Institute, the FDA, the FCC. There is no credible evidence that shows that that this causes harm. And so the World Health Organization, made a statement that radio energy is a possible type 2 carcinogen, like coffee and sunlight. So the reality is, possible type 2 carcinogen, I don't know what that means, but all I can say is that there's no credible evidence that proves that this causes harm.
I could actually show you plenty of studies that weren't industry funded that say and suggest that this is actually not safe for children, not just for cancer-causing things, but a million other reasons. So I could show you those studies, and I'd be happy to inform. Apparently, you just like to cherry pick which ones you like to read, but since it's obviously unclear right now whether it's safe or not, I'd rather keep my kids safe. I know you'd rather fatten your pockets, but I'd rather keep my kids safe. This question is for the representative from the board. Who is that? That's you right here. My question is, why weren't anybody informed about what was happening with the vote on renewing these guys' contracts? And how did they get such a great deal from you guys? I don't understand. I mean, they're like making out like bandits here on our children's health. So I would like to know why no one was notified that something that was so controversial, and you know everyone that you try to put up at any school, it's been fought tooth and nail. So you know that the parents who have to send their kids to schools don't want these things in schools. So why weren't we notified of that vote before it was voted? Also, why is this meeting being held during this summer? A lot of parents had no idea that this was going on. Your little successful robocall thing, if it goes to an answering machine, it says, check, we let them know. But a lot of people are on vacation. A lot of people just don't check with stuff like that. I mean, it's just not fair. People aren't as involved during the summer. And I don't understand. So people answer those
Lisa, yeah, let me ask you, why don't we stop?
They're treating us like kids.
No, I think his
What are we,
problem why he's so upset is because we were told as a community if we had questions to email you, and you didn't respond to those questions that should have been answered prior to this meeting. So we're waiting for those responses. I think that's part of the reason why people are so upset. Just a small part, but part of the reason.
And you're having a meeting in the summer.
All right,
When
so,
did you notify the student
Len,
body?
would you like to answer that question if it's going to get us back on track? This is about...
And my questions too.
So the answer to the question that you're asking is, there were a long list of questions, and they look very familiar, because Thea, many of those questions were identical to the questions that you asked on the Roosevelt High School site in Greenbelt. So
Actually, I've been asking for over 3 years.
yeah. So you know, again, there are a lot of issues that deserve proper questions in the proper venue and the proper environment. And we believe that the proper environment is this meeting, so that we can answer the questions. We're here. We're here, and we're here to answer your questions. So I don't understand.
Sir, there are questions about a cell tower at a school.
That people ask are on our website. They're
not
very, very transparent information about what's proposed. But all I can say is we're here tonight, and we're here to answer your questions. If you'll give us permission to please finish our presentation.
Hold on one second. There are a lot of people that don't know both sides of the story. All educated as you are on this topic, then we can open it up to the rest of the people.
Thank you. Sir, do you agree with what was just said?
No, I don't, because we don't need a salesman drive from you guys. We got questions, we don't need the 20 minutes. The information, there is none.
It's shame on the school board because they've already voted on it. The school board's already voted. Shame.
Hey, folks, can we have a show of hands for how many people would like to hear the rest of our presentation here? Okay. So, can we please just proceed? I know you have your questions. We will hear from you. We promise you. Okay, we will hear from you.
I'm looking forward to mine being answered.
Type of area that we're proposing.
How often is it run?
Now, if you please be respectful for the next person on the list. We'll get to that, and we'll continue answering your question.
Where's Lisa?
Lisa? It's above ground. There's nothing below ground, ma'am. Thank you for that. There's nothing below ground except the foundation, concrete. Is Lisa here? Lisa, you're up.
Okay.
And after Lisa is Brent.
Here's my question. I'd like to see documentation. I'd like to see documentation that.
I'll try. All right, is that better? Start over. So the master lease agreement, Milestone basically entered into an agreement with the school board to market our sites, all of our sites, not just Shady side, the entire school system. And since 2012, the agreements of that, which basically has a one-time siting fee.
Member in the military, my foremost concern is safety. I have a 6-year-old daughter who's going to that school next year, first grade. I don't care about consumer demand. I don't care about cell phone signals. I don't care about any of that. I care about my daughter. That's all I care about. So the first question that I have is, can be directed at both of you gentlemen and maybe the gentleman from the school board, is this could be a little bit of a dialogue if you want, but how often are these cell phone towers serviced and maintained? And to segue into that, are these people that are going to come work on this tower near where my daughter plays, are they vetted? But I mean vetted, I mean background checks. Are they sex offenders? Do you guys even look for that? Did you guys take that into consideration while building these towers?
Okay, so thank you, and that's, and again, we all care about the same thing. We care about the safety of our children, make sure the property is managed safely, and that every person that steps foot on that site is required under our contract with Verizon, with any other carrier, they're required to provide 24-hour notice before they go to the site. They are legally required, pursuant to their lease agreement with the corporation guarantees, that every single person who goes on that site has to go to the office and they have to show their ID at the check-in, and they scan that ID, and Greg, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when they scan their driver's license, they get all the information with respect if they're on any list of sexual predators or any of that information. It comes out in their systems. So they're vetted in that regard. They have to wear identifying clothing that shows what company they work for, whether it's Verizon or one of the consulting companies Verizon subcontracts with. But again, 24-hour notice prior to access. Once the tower is constructed and the equipment is located on the tower, the engineers will come out to the tower periodically as needed to make sure that the equipment on the tower is managed and functioning properly. Each carrier has their own schedule as to when they do that. It's really up to them. But we don't determine or monitor when they come in. They contact the school and they have to give 24-hour notice prior to.
That's my question.
How often?
As the owners or the proprietors of this tower and the gentleman from the school board, you just said you don't really keep track of these folks. It's kind of on the carrier and the school board. I need assurance that these folks aren't coming in and there's a registered sex offender, we don't catch it, and someone picks a kid off the playground. You know, like that's a big deal to me. The other thing, I'll just go ahead and get the rest of my questions out real quick. You guys can answer them in succession. Weather-related, we get a lot of hurricanes here, a lot of nasty weather, a lot of wind, right? How are these things? How safe are these? I know it's within a fall distance. You know, it's 350 feet from the school and all, but how are they rated for hurricanes, for instance? The other thing is transparency. I mean, I know you guys come up here and you're preaching transparency. That's great. That's awesome. Jerry Maguire said, "Show me the money." So, what proof do you guys have up here that this money that the school board has taken has benefited any of these schools, let alone my school where my daughter goes? Because I could care less about Broadwater or any other school. I care about Shady stuff. I'll go ahead and sit down. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. So we're dealing with the money question first.
Let me start with the safety of the children. That's most important. We require, again, like Len said, anytime any contractor, again, whether it be Milestone or somebody working on HVAC, on our schools, roofers, everybody that comes onto the school site, that comes in that door, as far as especially contractors, administration is supposed to scan their licenses in the system and hand them a badge. If they are flagged, they are rejected, and basically administration is notified that this sex offender basically had tried to get into this school. So we take that very seriously.
Yeah, they might not.
On the property, again, if there are contractors working on the site, we require basically any contractor that is there. We don't necessarily, I'm going to tell you, we do not check delivery drivers, for example, somebody in a dump truck dumping a load. Those guys are not checked basically with their equipment. But anybody working on a site and anybody who's there for an extended period of time, we typically do even a 30-day pass. So they'll be, because we have construction, like right now, Shady Side's getting the kindergarten edition. Those contractors do 30-day passes. So that crew, when they're on site, they scan them, and then they're required, whoever shows up on that job, the foreman is supposed to give a list. This is who's on the job today.
Will the cell phone tower site be considered to be on school ground?
Yes.
And therefore it falls under the
And I can tell you that we have 5 of these towers installed, and of the 5 that have been installed, every time Milestone is sending out their vendor, whether it's to check on the equipment or just basically whether it's maintenance or to look at it, to do anything, they always notify me, and I always notify the school to say these people are coming out to the school. They always check into the office. The only time I could see it being where maybe they wouldn't be there, like you said, during a hurricane, during a severe weather event, if they had to come out, most likely the schools are going to be closed, and they're going to be out there to probably check the equipment for, maybe the generator, whatever, make sure things are operating.
Fire department considers this
without building a new tower?
Yeah, that's always a priority, is to locate on an existing tower or a rooftop or another vertical structure, of which there are none that meet the coverage objective for Verizon in this particular community.
Okay. Also, I just want to show you that
when I simply went to the, I can't show you now. I simply went to the wetlands for the country and
They're tested remotely once a month. I believe they run for 60 minutes to make sure they're fully functioning. They go through all the necessary checks to make sure that they operate. So it's once a month on a planned time, so that it's not intrusive to the people in the community.
Okay, great. Gene,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Of a school. Life expectancy of a school.
Well,
When you build a school, like a bridge.
right. We actually have the oldest school in the state of Maryland. Annapolis Elementary School was built in 1896, and it is still in the same building. So they last a very long time. Eastport Elementary, 1935. High School Glen Burnie, 1933. Southern Middle School, 1933. This was 1970. We're just adding an addition. As everyone knows, Shady Side has been on the radar for many years.
And why hasn't it been renovated or anything?
Why hasn't it?
Why hasn't it been built bigger?
Limited funds. Shady Side is one of the last schools in our system, elementary school, to have an open space classroom enclosure project.
I was told because it was built on wetlands that they couldn't build it bigger. That was the problem.
No, it has to do with capacity. Part of my job is planning. We look at the demographics as far as population changes, and we were basically projecting a uptick in the enrollment, and therefore we're adding 4 classrooms and also doing the open space.
I saw trees be built across at the school about a year ago, 2 years ago. I saw trees be built at the school.
Folks, it's too loud in the back, please.
I saw trees be built at the school. Why were they just torn down to put up a cell tower? Our tax dollars paid for trees to be built in the school field. Planted. Built, planted, sorry. Planted.
Are you referring to the trees that 5th grade planted, like along the parking lot?
No, not at the parking lot.
In the back?
No, ma'am. Where all the Mexicans were at planting them.
Typically with any project, at least especially cell tower, if there is any type of memorial tree or something that's been planted,
it wasn't memorial at all.
But this site is located back in the woods. I don't think they were planted.
All right, and then the helicopter's landing, right? I was one of those people that got medevaced out of here because I drowned when I was 3. The only reason I lived was because of that helicopter landing at Shady Side. All right, there's that one. Oh, how large is your yard?
Sorry?
How large is your yard?
My yard?
Your yard.
It's
pretty fucking big, right?
My lot is...
It's pretty big. Michael, would you please?
If you have about a half an acre.
A half an acre? Damn. I was going to ask, why didn't you build it on your yard? So you could look at it.
Come on, man.
Yeah. Come on. And was it even zoned for that area?
Yeah, what's the zoning?
Was the tower zoned for that area?
For the Shady Side?
Yes.
Is it zoned for Shady Side? Yeah.
Is it
Is the site zoned for that area? I'd like to ask our zoning expert to come forward. Can you answer that question, please? I'm sorry, I'm not the zoning expert.
It's fine.
The zoning of the property in this area is R1 residential. Per the county code, towers are permitted in the R1 district as conditional use, provided they meet certain criteria in the code, including ruling out alternative commercial properties within 2,500 feet. So that's something that is part of our application to the county. We go through extensive layers of review process through zoning, through engineering. All of this is reviewed through the county before we can get approval to even break the ground.
In Edgewater, they built it behind the morgue.
I do want to point out, and I think maybe Lynn will let us put a map on the website. Everybody has been mentioning the wetlands and the critical areas.
These people.
Part of the research that Milestone and all of our engineers and zoning managers at the beginning of this process have to do is to figure out what the best spot for this tower is environmentally, engineering-wise, and the spot that Milestone picked is in a pocket that is just outside of the critical area, and it is outside of wetlands.
1,500 feet back, there's a property for sale for 15 acres, I believe. for $300,000 or something like that. You could have purchased that.
It is likely in the critical area.
Okay, sure.
So it's
So
right
I will put,
outside
I
the
will
critical
work
area.
with Milestone and we will put that map up on the website that shows those borders, so you can see that it is actually outside of those environmentally sensitive zones.
We have our engineer.
Folks, I just want to, the next board meeting, August 23rd.
10 a.m. in Annapolis, 2664 Riva.
Basically, it goes back to, I think, as far as the liability question, the hold harmless is basically, it's Milestone is holding us harmless, is what I read in the contract.
Paragraph in the master agreements after the insurance clause, our lawyers are supposed to have. And Arundel County basically assumes the problem and Milestone is held harmless. You read the master agreement.
Well, we have, are you done with, did you mention the liability issue? I'm sorry.
You know what?
Yes, I'm sorry. Okay. All right.
Yes, Stanton.
There seems to be a discrepancy as to who's holding who harmless. Can both of you speak to that, please?
It's the paragraph after the insurance paragraph.
You have it on
You know, obviously, there may be some questions regarding that. What I'd like to do is take a closer look and look at that provision, and if there's any discrepancy, we'll have a conversation about that. Please communicate with us. You know how to get through to us on the website. We can talk about that particular issue. I do know this, that we insure the tower, so we have general comprehensive liability for anything that happens on the site, as well as during construction and so forth. We demand certificates of insurance for all our contractors that go on the site, that name the schools and additionally name insured. So we do our best to make sure that every person that steps foot on that site for construction purposes has, that their organizations, as a part of our contract when we do installations, that they name the school board and school system on their insurance policy. But we'll look into that and we'll get back to you on that, and we'll be responsive with respect to that issue.
Thank you. Can we go to Theodore?
Hi. So I'd like to add to the liability issue. Verizon Wireless and actually most all wireless carriers in their 10K, their filings, and also their annual reports actually warn their shareholders that they may incur risk from lawsuits related to radio frequency radiation, and they let the people, their stockholders know that there could be a risk. Some of them say if the law changes. There's also a lot of lawsuits, of course, moving forward on this issue. But I really think it's important that children and parents be informed the same way that there may be a risk and we're not sure. In fact, Swiss Re, Lloyd's of London have all issued reports saying this, compared this to asbestos in terms of the possible risk that this could turn out to be for the company financially. So I'm here and had some questions. Actually, I have a question I really want you to respond to.
Okay, I do want to respond to that question, but I want to make sure I'm respectful for you.
Okay. My question is, none of the questions, there's a lot of questions that I've asked that haven't been answered. They still haven't been answered, and it's been a few years now. So one of my questions is, how often do maintenance people come to the tower? How many times a year? Because you have not answered that, and I'd really respectfully like an answer. And I'd like to include the carrier. And remember, if you have 5 carriers on a tower, that's 5 companies bringing their maintenance folks. So tell me how often they come to service these towers.
Well, first I'd like to answer the other question, which is the issue associated with liability and with disclosure. So you should understand that in every single lease that we sign, with Anne Arundel County Schools, we have a provision in our lease agreement so that if there's ever a risk, or it's conclusively proved that wireless energy causes harm, we take action. And we have the same responsibility with our carriers. We take action for that. So that's the number one thing I want you to
Can I say
understand.
something to that?
Yeah.
Disrespectful? That says that if it's proven that it causes cancer, which it likely will
Causes
in time,
harm.
causes harm, that then you would take the tower down or make it be below whatever the number is. This does not address the risk from all the years of exposure. Are you addressing that? Because, wait, I want to say one other thing.
Right.
As far as I understand, insurance companies don't insure for low-level electromagnetic fields. They group it as a pollutant. You have to buy special insurance if you want coverage for low-level radio frequency radiation. Do you have that insurance?
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned electromagnetic radiation because it's really de minimis. And as you may know, that to power a tower, it's the same electrical service as a single-family home. So the amount of electrical energy that's required to power our tower is very, very low. Each of the antenna panels, 30 watts, maybe 50 watts. So it's very, very low energy from each of our antenna installations. But I think with request to your question, which is the issue associated with harm, we have provisions in our agreement that if it's demonstrated by the government that it causes harm, we have to respond. And that's in every single agreement we've ever signed with the municipality. That if it's proven by the government that it causes harm, we have to act. And so that's the fail-safe with respect to this issue that you're concerned about.
Thank you.
Can we get the answer to the technicians?
Oh yeah, technician. How often do people come to service a tower?
Well, each carrier has a different plan for their equipment. Sometimes if there's high winds, they need to send crews out to make adjustments to antennas. So each and every carrier has their own schedule as to when they perform maintenance, when they go out on the site, and for what purposes. So the bottom line is that it's highly variable.
But you know my exact question, which is, if there are 4 carriers on a tower, how often does each one come? Because you have put your tower on a site where you can only have 4 to 5 visits a year. And I have been asking you this over and over again because as I see it violates the zoning. So I would like to know, so if you've got 4 people on your tower, and by the way, your master leasing agreement in Arundel allows 3 cell towers. First is the one, and then you can put another one up, and then another one with very little public process, which could mean 15 carriers, but let's pretend it's 1. How often, are you saying that those carriers will only come once a year to look at their $1 million equipment? I mean, how often will they come?
Well, the question you're asking is a law that's not enforced here in Anne Arundel County. The question you're asking is the law that's in Prince George's County.
Yes,
because there are no restrictions. So I'm here to answer questions for towers that we're building here in Anne Arundel County. So that's the purpose of today, is to answer that question.
So I have a couple
but the answer to the question is, Ms. Scarrato, is that each carrier has their own plan. Each carrier is highly variable, and each carrier, I can't promise you or tell you with any degree of accuracy how many times a wireless carrier is going to visit a site in any given time period, because that's not what I do. That's what the carriers do. They are responsible for their equipment. And so I can't answer the question that you're asking.
If I have a lease on an apartment, I know who's coming to my house. And, I live in Prince George's County where you put towers up, and I've been asking you. I am a social worker. I have clients. These are my children. They are all my children. And I would like to know the answer because I've been asking and you haven't answered. But I'm going to move on now because I have some other things to say, to speak to. Oh, maybe you can answer that question.
I'm going to interject 2 things. First thing, visits. Of the towers that we've had, I would say less than a handful of times in a year that they basically come out to look at the tower. There are a lot of visits when they are first out there, and when we first start the construction. I'll send somebody from our staff who's meeting with the contractor during that time when there's a lot of activity. We're checking on them all the time. There's a lot of involvement in the beginning with our staff, making sure everything's going smooth.
How often do they come if there's a tower and it's got a few carriers on it? How often would you say they come?
I would say we've only had them up since 2013. And that's not, it's a couple of years. It's probably less than per all the towers, probably each tower, probably no more than 10 times. In that period.
You're saying each tower gets 10,
If
once
that.
a month?
No, once a month, a year. I mean,
No, I know, 10, you're saying 10 visits a year for one tower.
At most. I would say probably less than
And how many carriers are on
But they're
your tower?
checking in with us. They're calling us. They're checking in if they're coming during the school hours. So we have no, look, if I had a problem with Milestone, communicating with the school, we try to reach out to the community during construction. And we go back to the second part.
Question was asked and answered. Here's the issue. It is...
No, I have to be credible evidence. The FDA, the FCC, they are not scrubbing for information. I've met with them. They aren't doing anything. They're 20-year standards. FCC limits are 20 years old. And if you remember how long it takes to deal with lead and asbestos, waiting for the government may take a bit longer. Now, other governments are doing something like Russia, China, a bunch of European governments who recommend reducing exposure of children. And what I'd like to tell everyone is the American Academy of Pediatrics has a website called healthychild.org. You can go on it and you can read what our nation's largest group of doctors says about this radiation, which is that it can lead to, and it has been found, headaches, depression, all kinds of other things. And concerning the credible evidence, I have an NTP piece of paper, it's actually their fact sheet, about the studies they did on radio frequency radiation, which found increased cancers. And what I'd like to say is that the Ramazzini Institute is doing a study using cell tower levels 1,000 times less than what our federal government, all our federal government studies that we've ever done have found an effect. And the Ramazzini study already found an effect at 1,000 times less than what a cell tower exposure is. So I urge you to look at it. It was about low birth weight. They haven't released what the cancer findings are.
But when you add the animal study from the National Toxicology Program, the combined evidence, in my view, is that there is now sufficient evidence that radiofrequency radiation is carcinogenic to humans. That's IARC Category 1, and you can't ignore that. And the implications of this, we have to be cautious. Radiofrequency radiation is now ubiquitous. We're probably exposed to it in this room, even though we do not want to be.
Environment, because more people now connect to the internet through their wireless device than to computers sitting at their desktops. And people want their phones to work. And in fact, when you look at order of priority, it's ranked, having good wireless connectivity in your community is considered one of the top 4 things people look for when they're looking at becoming part of a community. The other element, which is equally important, is 911. 70% of the 911 calls made in the United States, and even more so here in Anne Arundel County, are made through wireless devices. And part of the reason for that is because 50% of the people in the United States have cut their landline, and their only connection through voice into a phone call is on a wireless device, and that is continuing to trend upward. But more importantly, all of our first responders have wireless devices, computers, tablets in their vehicles.
That consumers are confused. There are conflicting reports. There is a lot of scientific information out there. It gets some press coverage, but then it gets countered by industry. I am embarrassed to say that I believe my industry is on a campaign to bury the science and to confuse the message on the harmful effects of wireless devices.
A major U.S. government study on rats finds a link between cell phones and cancer, an explosive development in the long-running debate over the health effects of mobile phones. Here with more details is Wall Street Journal reporter Ryan Knutson. Ryan, thanks so much for being with us. Now, this $25 million study is the largest and most comprehensive study that's ever been done on cell phones and health effects, correct?
Yeah, this is one of the biggest studies that the U.S. government has ever done on this topic. It's probably the biggest study that the National Toxicology Program has ever done on anything. This has been such a debated thing over the years that when the government set out to do this, they really wanted to design a study that would try to not put the issue to rest, but really be the most comprehensive experiment.
Get to the bottom of it. And how was it conducted exactly?
They put mice and rats into these specially designed chambers where where they could expose them at different intervals of RF energy, which is the kind of energy that comes off of cell phones.
On the left, this is a picture of the empty chamber. These are the paddles that I talked about. This is the vertical paddle. This would spin during exposure. This is a horizontal paddle. This would also spin during exposure. And this creates that homogeneous environment within the chamber.
And then they found a link to 2 types of tumors?
Right, gliomas and schwannomas. And those are associated with other types of tumors that have been found in other epidemiological studies in the past. So
Were these brain tumors or tumors in other parts of the body?
So we concluded from this data that the hyperplastic lesions and the glial cell neoplasms of the heart and the brain observed in the rats are considered likely the result of exposure to whole body GSM or CDMA modulated radiofrequency radiation. There is higher confidence in the results that we observed in the heart than what we observed in the brain.
Majority of the people that look at this data set say it's more likely that it is related, that these, certainly the schwannomas, and we have less confidence in the gliomas, they are related to radiofrequency radiation more so than they're not related to radiofrequency radiation. So that's sort of the line at which we've come down on.
There's 100 studies that you've looked over and been a part of that say that this is doing us great harm.
There's always an ongoing debate about is there enough science to defend, and there's reports that say we need more studies, we need more evidence. So we put a research team together and came back and identified over 130 studies that Health Canada has not taken into account in the last update of the safety guidelines.
So
The spectrum of electromagnetic radiation ranges from ionizing radiation, like X-rays, which have enough energy to knock electrons out of their orbit and cause cancer, to non-ionizing radiation, like microwaves, which have much less energy and considered to be safer. Mobile phones, tablets, phone towers, smart meters, baby monitors, and Wi-Fi routers are all sources of radio frequency microwave radiation.
So I mentioned that this is a group TB or possible human carcinogen. This has been belittled many times, and certainly a lot of people are saying, but the risk isn't nearly as serious as with X-rays or smoking. Well, this is the COMET assay that looks at DNA damage, and you can assess quantitatively damage by looking at the length and density of the comet-like tail there. On the left, you'll see that sham where there is no toxic exposure, that's healthy DNA. In the middle, that's gamma irradiation equivalent to about 1,600 chest X-rays, so alarming, possibly carcinogenic doses. And you compare that with just 24 hours of mobile phone radiation below current allowable guidelines. You can see that actually that looks extremely comparable.
To clarify that, we did a study in mice where we randomized the mice during pregnancy to be exposed to cell phone radiation. Nothing different at all about these mice, and the cell phones were muted so that the mice wouldn't even know if the cell phone was turned on or not. So the mice were randomized during pregnancy to have the cell phone on top of their cage, and this was done throughout their pregnancy. And then we let them give birth, turned off the cell phone, and evaluated them with various behavioral tests as adult mice. What we found is that there were significant differences in these mice. The mice were hyperactive, their memory was decreased, and they had decreased anxiety. So they weren't paying attention to their surroundings, they were very active, hyperactive.
We're not making this up, and I want to be very clear. Industry has not said once that cell phones are safe. The federal government, the various interagency working groups have all said
can pass through soft flesh. These radio waves can pass through water. Okay. Your body is 70% water. Yes. Okay.
Is intensifying this afternoon over a little-known confidential deal that gave the rights to a cell phone tower developer to put radiating emitting facilities on the grounds of a huge number of schools in Prince George's County. Parents were shocked and asking, how could this happen? And who gets the benefit? Now, the school system CEO is now backing away from that plan. Scott Broom at Eleanor Roosevelt High School, where this issue has hit critical mass. Scott?
Well, he's backing away from at least part of the plan, which is to put a cell phone tower here. Roosevelt parents
came out heavily against the idea of putting a cell phone tower here at the high school, and then they discovered this shocking confidential lease deal that reveals that a developer has obtained the rights to put cell phone towers on at least 73 schools here in Prince George's County. The developer is called Milestone Communications.
Yes, because our property values are being affected and we were never notified.
Here are Milestone officials taking on Roosevelt parents April 25th. It did not go well for the tower developer.
And you're sitting here like it's some beautiful thing that you're representing.
Now Prince George's County School CEO Dr. Kevin Maxwell has pulled the plug on the Roosevelt deal, saying Milestone has not, quote, met our desired standards of transparency between the school system and Milestone Communications. It's a that gives Milestone the right to build as many as 2 cell phone towers on at least 73 of the county's 208 Roosevelt parents showed not everyone is on board with the idea of turning public schools into industrial communication sites, complete with warning signs about high levels of radio frequency radiation, which many parents fear could.
Proposed new Verizon cell phone tower deep in Anne Arundel County is drawing heated opposition from parents. It would sit directly on an elementary school property. Shelley Orman is live in Shady Side tonight, where dozens are now voicing their concerns. Hi, Shelley.
Hi, Kai. You know, many people coming tonight brought signs like these against the project. Now, those at the cell company say that a new tower is needed. They call this a dead zone, but opponents are dead set against this idea. It's a quiet town that lives up to its name, Shady Side.
Part of the reason we moved here was to just get away from all the pollution of the big cities.
Wednesday night, fired up parents and residents were anything but quiet.
Working with the shame on the school board for that.
They want Verizon Wireless to know they do not want a cell tower built near Shady Side Elementary School.
I have a soon-to-be first grader at the school.
Verizon and the company Milestone Communications have filed to build a fenced-in 114-foot tower in the woods that border the school.
Schools should be in the business of education and not in the business of providing cell coverage to communities.
The Anne Arundel Board of Education has an agreement with Milestone to place cell towers on county school property, receiving money in exchange.
We pick locations so that it blends in with the environment, so it has very little visual impact. That's why this site is such a good site, because it's a large site, it's a heavily wooded area.
Lynn Forkas with Milestone says the tower is needed to improve service.
Verizon has towers nearby, but this is a huge dead zone for Verizon. The amount of data going through the networks has tripled just in the last couple of years. And in order to make our phones work, we have to have more infrastructure.
Unclear right now whether it's safe or not. I'd rather keep my kids safe.
Those opposed are worried about the environmental impact and property values and questioning any potential health impacts.
All my neighbors don't want it, so, and we're the people who live right next to it.
We're not like anti-cell tower, we're not anti-technology. We just think there's a lot of different places that they could place a cell tower than on school property.
Now, this approval process involves a number of steps. Tonight's meeting was just one part of that. The school board still has to formally approve or deny the application after hearing from the community. Reporting live in Shady Side tonight, Shelley Orman, Fox 45.
I'd like to show just how a cell phone tower near schools could impact the safety.
It's a whole slew of issues, but my primary concern when I heard about it was safety, because nobody's said it's safe yet.
Community members gathered last night to discuss plans to place a cell phone tower on the grounds of Shady Side Elementary School. Verizon has applied to place a 114-foot tower at the school in a secured, fenced-in area. Opponents say there are not enough studies to show the impact it could have on children.
It's a whole slew of issues, but my primary concern when I heard about it was safety, because nobody's said it's safe yet. Nobody.
Well, I've been building cell towers for 17 years, and we have over 20 partnerships with schools in 6 different states. We've built over 100 towers, half of them are on school properties, and and we believe that there's no credible evidence that shows that there's any harm to children or people.
Opponents also say the coverage area for the tower will be limited. And